you proposing taking away their guns?
Yes. Enough prayers. Time for some action.
You want to take everyone's guns away.
Bingo. Enough prayers. Time for some action.
We're going to take your AR-15.
We're not going to give up. We'll find you.
We will find you.
Quick little update here for some gun control stuff. And this is interesting. It's kind of outside of the normal types of gun control news. Not quite political, but coming at it from a different angle. This is coming from CNBC.com. Payments giants to apply new code identifying sales at U.S. gun stores. Visa, the world's largest payments processor, said on Saturday it will implement a new merchant category code for U.S. gun retailers, which will identify transactions at firearms stores. The International Organization for Standardization, that's the ISO, approved creation of the merchant code on Friday.
Hold on one second.
What?
International Organization for Standardization, iOS. Did they change it to ISO because iOS is the Apple thing?
That's a good question.
Or is it European? It's backwards. Anyway, continue.
It could be that. Yeah. It could be. Yes. If it was like Spanish or something, the standardization would come before organización.
The ISO is an international standard development organization composed of representatives from the National Standards Organization of member countries. Membership requirements are given in article blah, 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 blah. This was started in, 1926 as the International Federation of the National Standardizing Associations, which primarily focused on mechanical engineering. The ISA was suspended in 1942 during World War II. However, after the war, ISA was approached by the recently formed United Nations Standards Coordinating Committee with a proposal to form a new global standards body. In October 1946, ISA and UNSCC delegates from 25 countries met in London and agreed to join forces to create the International Organization for Standardization. The organization began officially on February 23rd, 1947, and it is based in Geneva, Switzerland, right by that CERN machine thingamajigger there.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So there you go. It is international, all tied in with sort of a global, you could call it global governance. I mean, it literally is global governance. Yeah. The International Organization for Standardization approved creation of the merchant code on Friday following pressure from gun control activists who say it will help track suspicious weapons purchases. Why is it suspicious if you're purchasing it at a store? Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Exactly. Quote, following ISO's decision to establish a new merchant category code, Visa will proceed with next steps while ensuring we protect all legal commerce on the Visa network in accordance with our long-standing rules. I'm sure you will, Visa said in a statement. MasterCard said on Friday that following ISO's approval, quote, we now turn our focus to how it will be implemented by merchants and their banks as we continue to support lawful purchases on our network while protecting the privacy and decisions of individual cardholders. American Express said when ISO develops a new code, the company will work with third-party processors and partners on implementation. The code will show where an individual spends money, but not what items were purchased. Several top U.S. pension funds, including those for government workers in New York City and California, had submitted shareholder resolutions asking payment companies to weigh in on the issue. Some gun rights activists have worried the new code could lead to unauthorized surveillance. Yeah. Mass shootings this year. Oh, okay. Just got to jump into mass shootings. Mass shootings this year, including at Texas Elementary School that killed 19 children and 2 teachers, have added to the long-running U.S. debate over gun control. U.S. President Joe Biden has called for Congress to pass an assault weapons ban, as well as $37 billion for crime prevention programs, with $13 billion to hire and train additional 100,000 police officers over the next 5 years.
What happened to defund the police?
Yeah. That's old news, Gons. That was just during the election, so he could get elected and then do the opposite. Now, this code thing is interesting. They don't do a whole lot to explain it in this one. And I've actually been following this back and forth on this whole thing for maybe a year now, maybe a little less. And what they're talking about is, as far as what the credit card company sees when you use your card, and for Visa, this works for your debit card too. It's not just your credit card. When you make a purchase, there's a whole list of codes that get put on your credit card statement. And it just kind of identifies what kind of stores you're shopping at. And there's a big debate. Now, first of all, this is not technically gun control necessarily. It's not changing anything. I mean, who knows? It will create the ability for your card to block you from using guns, using your card at gun stores. They can technically do that when they can identify it. I don't know how exactly this would help track gun purchases, especially because, the store code or the industry code they don't know what you purchase necessarily, or at least they don't have it on hand. They could ask the merchant. Stuff like that. And this has been kind of a hot topic because it's not necessarily a government tracking system, but it is, sort of an economic tracking system, which is not necessarily any better. Is it worse? I don't know, but it's not better. It's taking kind of the back door to tracking your gun purchases. And now, of course, this only happens if you use a credit card or a Visa card or something. There was a little bit of a hiccup, though, Gons, because you don't have to buy a gun at a gun store. A lot of people, a large portion of gun sales are done at sporting department stores.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm talking about more like a Scheels, Bass Pro Shop,
right.
Cabela's, things like that, where they sell millions of items and not just guns. So those sporting goods stores have their own code. Mm-hmm. And so creating a new code just for gun stores really doesn't do a whole lot, except for cause trouble for small businesses. Most gun stores are small business gun stores. This is just these little independently owned things that are already, have to jump through so many hoops to do their business. Very highly regulated industry. And the one of the bigger worries was, this is just gonna scare people away from using small business. Everybody's going to start going to the big sporting goods stores if they don't want this code showing up on their financial record.
That's probably part of the idea too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And doesn't it fit in perfectly to what we saw over the pandemic, putting out as many small businesses out of business as possible and making special rules for the big guys so they could survive the pandemic or indeed thrive during it.
Yeah, they're funneling everybody to one location or small number of locations where things can be tracked a little bit better.
Yep. Exactly. Now, of course, this only applies if you're using a card. And, as far as cash transactions go, a good amount of cash transactions happens at these small stores. And it's, the annoying part of it is they love to ignore the fact that every gun sale has a background check and is extremely official at any store, whether it's a, Cabela's or or a small gun store or whatever. Why would you need it recorded on your credit card statement when you literally get it checked with the FBI? Your background check goes to the FBI. It's put on red. The whole thing happens before you leave the store with your gun. Now it's just simply handing over that information. Well, I'll tell you what it is the FBI does have restraints on sharing that info. Whereas, Visa probably wouldn't have any or would have less restraints. They get to choose if they want to share if their customers shopped at a gun store or not. Whereas the FBI, a government, technically a public service bureau, they have certain legal restrictions on that information. So yeah, it's one of these weird things where it doesn't seem very interesting, but at the same time, when you think about stakeholder capitalism, the real control over these aspects of life by corporations and not the government, it's a very sort of technocratic solution to the problem as far as the gun activists are concerned.
Yeah, it truly, you can't take them away, but maybe we'll just monitor where you're getting them, kind of thing.
And there's always the aspect of the panopticon. Now you just know that if you shop at a small gun store and you use a card, that it is on record with your credit card company, and probably will just keep people from using that. And it won't do. One of the biggest things is it'll do nothing to stop violence. I mean, absolutely nothing. Somebody could just go to a different store. Yeah. Okay. All right. So there you go. There's a little update for you.
All right.